This is the How'd You Do It podcast, and I'm your host, Lyle Wilkes. I believe that people have more to offer and knowledge to share than they ever give themselves credit for. So with that, my goal is to deep dive into the success stories of business owners, entrepreneurs, and community icons so they can share the road they traveled and what they learned along the way. Welcome to episode 1 of How'd You Do It podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about people and their stories and how they got to where they are. I believe that everyone out there has a lot more knowledge and truth to share than what they give themselves credit for. And that's what we want to talk about, and that's what we're after, is trying to find out what it was that made them different and succeed. And today we've got my good friend Jimmy Parsons, long time in the mortgage industry with Guild Mortgage, and we talk about his road. And I'm telling you, there is a ton of gold nuggets, sales insights, and it's pretty amazing all the things he's accomplished over the years. So let's get right into it. So we got Jimmy Parsons with Guild Mortgage on. I'm super happy to have you here, especially on the first one.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like it's full circle because like me and you connected early in my career, and now we're starting something new, kind of doing something together again. You've had a huge influence on me, and I look up to you and respect you a lot. And I think that you have a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experience in the industry of the mortgage industry, and I want the people to know about it.
Well, thank you. I remember it was about 5 years ago we met.
5 or 6,
and I was looking at you, and I was like, man, this guy's a go-getter. I got to meet him, right? And here we are, right?
I know. I would have laughed at you, and we said that before we got on here. Was it like if you would have told me 2 years ago that I'd be a TikTok person with like the light and doing Instagram reels and now a podcast, I would have laughed. But I mean, I'm
you're
thankful thankful for the road.
That's right.
So I really want to know like how you got started in the mortgage industry. Was it something that like you just went to career day and saw the guy dressed up real nice and was like, yeah, I definitely want to do that when I
Yeah, absolutely not. Right? Yeah. Nobody enters the mortgage business by choice.
Okay.
I would say that. No, that's the old adage is, nobody graduates college in mortgage lending.
Okay.
So, I did have a finance degree and I did have a concentration in real estate. But, when I graduated back in the early 90s, the job market was tough.
Okay.
And it took me 6 months to get a job, even with a college
So
degree.
you were jobless right out of college?
Yeah, yeah. So I landed at Colonial Mortgage Company, which was headquartered here in Montgomery, Alabama. And I got hired as a bankruptcy clerk in the mortgage servicing division. So I had to take the calls of all the people that were in bankruptcy and help them, figure out how to pay their mortgage payment, what we couldn't do, and all.
How was that? What was the experience like with the bankruptcy side of things? Was it like being thrown to the wolves and just dealing with everybody in bad situations, or was like what was that like?
Well, it was a good time back then. So like there was only like a 2%, delinquency rate. So my job was super boring.
Oh, okay.
But I was making like $13,000 a year. My first job. It was enough to get my own apartment, and I was pumped, right? Yeah. Back then, I got a job. It was pumped, but saying that, like, that's when I entered the mortgage business.
Okay.
Right. So I have done nothing except for a little stint outside the mortgage business, trying to run my own car dealership. It was a complete failure.
What made you want to do that?
The .com boom.
So what was your idea of how did the .com boom in the car business?
So I was going to sell cars on the internet.
Oh, so you were like an early
before
adoption
Autotrader.com came out.
Hey, you were just a little early.
I was too early. I didn't know how to do it, but I had a website called autobrokers.com, and we're going to take orders on it and to deliver on it, using the internet as an ordering system to take out the middleman. And way too early and way too young, and it didn't work out. So got back in the mortgage business.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's all I've ever known. But I've got a...
Did you go back to Colonial?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I worked at Colonial and really got the overall picture of how the business works. So, it's not just origination. I cut my teeth in the servicing area, also learning the secondary market
When you
piece
say
of it.
servicing area, what is like
So
servicing the
after,
loan after you
yes,
close on it?
yes,
Okay.
after you close on the loan, you got to make your payments. You got to do your escrows. You got to, all those things. And so actually, I worked my way up to manage the default section of the service. So anybody that couldn't make their mortgage payments,
Did that come from the bankruptcy history?
yes.
Yeah.
So I just
Okay.
worked my way up through that. And then, worked and I met a guy. I was really good at that. I met a guy, he came down and he worked on the retail side and he was running, we were going to kind of revamp or restart or grow the retail side of the mortgage company through Colonial Bank. And he pulled me in his office one day and he said, you know what? You don't want to be in the servicing business in this industry your whole life. You want to be on the retail side. That's the side where you can be most successful, make the most money. I want to pull you over here. And I was like, thought about it for like all of 30 minutes, right? Said, I'm in. I'm
Okay.
in. So he kind of took me under his wing. And
What year was this?
this was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So
Like 2002, 3-ish?
yes,
Okay.
2000, 2003. And from under his tutelage, I learned the front side of the mortgage
And
industry.
when you say front side retail, what you're talking about is direct to consumer. So like if I
Yes.
need a loan, I'm calling you
That's
down
right.
versus you were in the background in the shadows, making
Right.
sure everything worked out.
Right.
God forbid I have bankruptcy, I would deal
Right.
with you at that point. So
Went basically going from an operational side of the business to the sales side of the
okay.
business.
What was the difference like because before you're basically I'm picturing like you're in a room just running numbers all day and then, saying yes or no on the loan to the retail guy. What was the difference to you like when you went from the servicing side to the retail and started dealing directly with the consumer? Was it like a big culture shock for you as far as like how you operated or
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot more action in the sales side, right? So
sure, man.
it's boring. I mean, I look, you cannot survive without amazing operational people. And some people really enjoy the steadiness and the security and are awesome operational people.
Yeah.
I'm not built that way.
Yeah.
I like creativity. I like excitement. I like the adrenaline of production.
Sure.
Like I realized early on that you could not fill my appetite of production. Like I wanted to produce. It tapped into your competitive nature. Like if you're a semi-competitive person, you want to be in sales because
So you're like a high
a
red
high
or-
achiever
yes.
type
Yeah.
personality, almost like a not afraid of risk type personality. So it fit me.
Yeah.
And man, we just took off. And so underneath his guidance and his tutelage, we actually totally revamped the retail division of Colonial Bank back then. It was great.
Were they just not doing that much at the
They
time?
weren't doing that much volume. It was kind of losing money. And we began recruiting and bringing on teams from other mortgage companies. We built a fantastic team, brought them all in, and really just started producing. And then, of course, if you can think about that time in our industry, it was not as regulated as it is now. And it was right, it was in that boom, right?
Yeah, pre-2007.
Yes.
Yeah, or 2008, depending on how you
anybody that was, here's what I see, anybody that was in the sales side of the mortgage business, early 2000s to now are OGs.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen it all.
Yeah.
Because in that time, it was the wild, wild west, right?
I've heard stories. You got some cool stories as far
I
as
do. I mean, like if you remember, there was a company called Countrywide. They were the number one mortgage company. They had this program called the Fast and Easy.
Okay.
All right. So like you could literally, I could talk to you on the phone. I'd say, how much do you make? You tell me how much you make. Great. I'd pull your credit. Looks good. All right. How much do you have to put down on the house? I got this. Okay, great. You're approved.
That was it.
That was it.
This was before 2008.
This is before the crash. And you will get approved. And then, appraisals were unregulated. So literally we could just say, I have this appraiser, Mr. Appraiser, this is the contract price. It needs to come in at this price. Gotcha. There was no panel, it was totally unregulated. And it created the biggest
Oh yeah.
lending bubble in the history of the world, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And then, I was in charge of, we were a correspondent lender, which means we'd take in the loans and we'd sell them off to
Sure.
a correspondent relationship. And so I was in charge of
So y'all didn't do the servicing side.
No.
Okay.
We were complete, originate, sell.
Okay.
And so I managed the relationships with all these companies that we would sell these products to. I also helped motivate and recruit the production team and all that, bring in new products. And what was crazy is, the secondary marketing piece back then was completely unregulated, which blew
What do you
everything
mean by secondary marketing?
So,
Yeah.
secondary marketing, well, the way a mortgage works is you make a mortgage and it's pooled into a security.
Yeah.
And then it's sold on Wall Street, basically, and people can invest into it in a simpler term. So, it's not an instrument where a bank just keeps it on their books. That's a rare thing. But the majority of mortgages are made and put into a security of basically like mortgages in tranches, and then they're pooled into a bunch of them, millions of dollars worth, and then they're put out on the secondary market. And it's almost like, hey, here's a pool of annuities or so that's paying this rate.
Yeah.
You can invest into it, and then you get the interest on it.
Okay.
And so back then, the securities that they would pull together were made up of all kinds of crap. Fast and easy. It's like they were just thrown in there, and then they would go out into the world and say, hey, here's a pool of $10 billion, $10 million an investment. It's paying, this much money. You want to invest into it. And so you had municipalities, hedge funds, governments, all kinds of pension funds investing into these pools.
Gotcha. And then when those were, I guess you could call it the foundation of those loans weren't good. When
Imagine billions and billions of dollars invested into this security that was supposed to pay back in a certain way that was deemed AAA rated okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you got these lenders. I mean, back in those days, Domino's pizza guys would just I'm going to be a lender. And they'd get in call centers and just sling loans to people. I mean, you didn't have to be licensed. It was just the wild, wild west.
So it really was a wild, wild west.
It was a wild, wild west.
2 feet heartbeat, you got a loan.
You get a loan.
After you get the loan, you can be a loan officer too if you want to.
Nobody's checking if the actual person has the ability to repay it. Nobody is checking to see if the value of the property is even actual real value. And what was crazy is you would come to me. This is what people were doing, especially in Florida and the Panhandle and all.
Yeah.
You'd come to me and say, all right, Jimmy, I'm going to buy this house for $350,000. I make X, no doc, no assets, whatever. We'd write the loan to you. 30 days later, you'd sell it for $400 because if somebody else would come in, it was just a big flipping opportunity.
Well, as far as for the houses
Yeah,
themselves,
man. People were just boom, boom. Oh, in 90 days, I can make $30,000, $40,000 in a house. And you saw this just big bubble being and then all of a sudden, people it crashed.
Yeah.
Right? It slowed down. People couldn't pay it. And then you see the trickle.
Well, because a lot of those loans were maturing at that point, right? It was
maturing.
They were all balloons.
People started missing their payments. All of a sudden, it was like a house of cards falling, right? All of a sudden, these big, huge securities with all these major investors, all of a sudden, they weren't getting paid on their money. So they were losing money.
Where were you at? And do you remember the feeling because what's the movie, The Big Short, right?
Yes.
When everyone, that one scene where it just all kind of just...
Yes. So I'm in the middle of it.
Yeah. So where were you at and what was it like? It's knowing when it finally kicked in for you that this is bad.
So again, I mentioned earlier, so I kind of managed the relationships on the correspondent side. At the same time, there was a big commercial thing, a commercial lending issue.
Yeah.
And, Colonial Bank was on the are we going to make it list. You remember so many bank failures in 2008. And all of a sudden, I'd come into work and let's say one of our correspondents was Chase. Chase was like, hey, I know you got a $20 million worth of locks that you're delivering to me. We're cutting you off. So I have to go back to all the sales force and say, we can't deliver these loans to Chase anymore. We're going to have to move them to Wells, right? Week later, Wells would be like, hey, we're not very comfortable with what's happening with Colonial Bank. We're going to cut you off. And I have to go back and say, you're going to have to go back to all these people in process and tell them they don't qualify anymore because we're having to switch it to U.S. Bank. And U.S. Bank has different regulations.
I didn't think about that.
And different, yeah.
That's where it would start, and that's what you experience. You were kind of on the front line.
Front line.
Yeah.
So, in the meantime, bank executives are telling us everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. What sabotaged Colonial Bank back then? I think we were almost okay to make it through. There's a whole bunch. I could talk to you for hours about things, but in a general, Colonial also had a separate relationship with, Colonial was a lender to other mortgage companies to help fund their operations. So we had the retail division, which we were direct to consumer, but we also made loans to mortgage companies so they could fund their operations.
So not only were y'all struggling, but you were lending money to other
mortgage companies
that were struggling as well.
And this was all on, I think there's actually a documentary on this. There was a mortgage company called Taylor Bean and Whitaker back then. Okay. And we had the warehouse line. I think it was like $5 billion, whatever, warehouse line out to them.
Okay.
Well, they got to a point where they were fraudulently making mortgages. It's like almost kiting checks, but kiting mortgage notes.
Okay.
Through our warehouse line. And the bank
it.
operation, the treasurer and all that, they didn't know it because there was one employee at Colonial that managed that was in on it.
Oh.
So I remember, here we are on the retail side,
a little Trojan horse action over there.
So we're here on the retail side. We're struggling. We're trying to get clients in homes. We're going to get through this, rallying everybody. Every day is a struggle to how can we solve, we got $20 million of loans. How can we put this here? How can we put this there? I'm talking with all these relationships saying, come on, we can do this. We're also trying to figure out how to keep things afloat, of course, keep the team together. LOs are freaking out, because you can just see it every day. A bank's failing. Come to the office one day, my boss walks into me. He's pale white. He goes, the FBI just raided the warehouse division down in Florida. I said, the FBI? He's, FBI. Shut it all down. Wouldn't let the employees out. And we're like, what the hell? What's going on?
Yeah.
How is this? And the FBI had caught them.
Okay.
So that was it. $5 billion credit line shot down. That was it. The bank imploded, right? So we got seized by the government. Now the president of that mortgage company, you can look him up. His name was Lee Farkas. He's in jail.
Oh, yes? Okay.
Still in jail.
Yeah.
And then I think the person that was responsible for, was kind of in cahoots with him,
the
that
Trojan
worked at
horse.
Colonial.
Yeah.
I think she may still be in jail or may have just got out. But that was a long, it was over 15 years ago.
Gosh, I guess it has been 15. Yeah. 15.
So, so Colonial was one of the companies that just blew up, got taken over by the government. Every single individual within that organization above me.
Yeah.
I was like a VP, whatever, but gone. Boom.
So what?
Hightailed it out. And I'm sitting there, I would come into work and was like, what the hell? And then, of course, we got all these teams and retail teams. We had branches in Montgomery, branches in Florida and all that. I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And everybody started looking out for themselves. And so everybody separated. And I just hung around because I had to, because I had personal family issues going on at the same time. I needed income.
So you were still getting paid through all of this. So you still kind of had a job.
I kind of had a job.
The sky's falling apart around you.
Didn't know my future. And it was like, this was the bottom for me. So had family issues, had nobody above me, nobody to counsel me, had no clue if I was even going to make my next house payment. I was alone at that time,
Yeah.
right? So I had just started a family that blew up. So I was alone, and I remember coming home at night, getting in my closet, literally on my knees, crying.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? God, the whole world, in my world, the mortgage industry has completely blown up, and it's all I've ever known. I don't know what to do. Lost my family, lost my job.
Yeah.
You know, it's a rock bottom situation, and you're terrified, and you have really nothing to lean on except prayer. That's what I did. And so we were taken over. At that time, we were taking over by BB&T, who is now Truist Bank.
Yeah.
And they came in, and man, they were very guarded because they really didn't know, like, who was involved in the fraud, who wasn't involved with the fraud. Was it the warehouse line? Did the retail people know about it? All this, lot of investigation going on. I got offered a job to be a pretty good job. They said, hey, we want to move you out to Texas and let you run the region for Texas because and I'm like, I can't do that right now. Things are falling apart at home. Can you make me I'll produce here in Montgomery. And, so I was a producing manager for BB&T in Montgomery, and, pretty good little operation, and it killed.
So you went from, just so I'm tracking, you were over the sales force, we'll call it.
Kind of, yeah. I was like a second guy in charge. It was like a dotted line.
Okay.
Right, to the president. But so at Colonial Bank, like the secondary marketing, where we would, I had that. I had, payroll, like, administration type things.
Yeah.
I had, we would just kind of work. I worked hand in hand with the president. We were a small operation.
Yeah.
And I worked with the managers of the teams and the LOs to help them resolve problems and help them recruit and all that. But I personally did not produce.
So you decided that was like to stay where you're at, like no to Texas, and you wanted to be a producer.
I got to produce.
Why do you think you wanted to produce? Why didn't you want to go back into like a leadership role? Because to me, like was it more like you wanted like to maybe have some control over
maybe
what after
first
the sky's falling, it's like, what can I control? It's like I can control how many phone calls.
Well, there's a lot of fear going on right there, but that was my only option though.
Yeah.
I didn't so it's like you either go to Texas and have a non-producing role, or you stay here and you have a producing role. I'm staying here. I had some personal things I had to.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if I wanted to keep a relationship with my kid, I'm staying here. So it was personal. But the thing about it is, again, in those moments, in those rock bottom moments, and in all that fear, and of course, the mortgage business is cyclical. I've been through the ups and downs, and we've had one, 2023. That's where you find out what you're made of.
Oh yeah.
And so I had, been put into a position to say, all right, like, let's see what I'm made of. All right. And I think once you go through something like that and come out on top, all it does is make you stronger. Like, if I can get through that, the crash of 2008, and actually produce like crazy and make myself into like number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say like in 2008, 9, and 10. So you left your non-producing job, like your leadership role. Now you're like, okay, it's time to go hunt.
Yep.
Like, what was like the first plan of action? Like, what would you decide to do?
So back then, okay, you got to remember the realtors were toast.
Yeah.
You think it was bad for me? Like, nobody's buying homes.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody. And if you're a realtor back then and you're still in the business, how they part-time jobs, not because home sales were done.
Yeah.
For a while. So the nice thing about then, and the difference between then and now, is the government came in and saved the housing industry in America is so important to the economy as a whole. The housing market crashes, the world crashes, just so you know. And so the government were like, was like, we cannot let the housing market crash any further. So they put in backstops and support, lower rate. They created all these programs for people who couldn't make their mortgage payment. It's called a HARP refinance and all that. So we could do a lot of things to keep clients in their homes back then. So,
So the realtors didn't have any houses. So
the
but you were staying
realtors,
busy, like
I was
kind of
staying busy,
restructuring.
refinancing, HARP loans, all that. But at the same time, I started tapping into the local realtors at the same time because I was like, because again, it tapped into my appetite. It was like, oh, hell, like there's no cap in my business. Like that's the exciting part about sales. There's no ceiling.
Nope.
The more I produce, the more I make. And I at that time in my life, I needed it. I needed a lot of money. I needed a lot of production. And I saw it as a major opportunity, right? So a lot of people left the business. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it tapped into it. And I started going crazy and started producing and started meeting people and started building client base and all that. And, I was really good at it.
Yeah.
Learned that I was good at it. So it's good. It's fun, right?
It is fun.
It is fun.
When you finally, like, I think even in my business, like when I first started, like it was probably definitely more of a mindset of transaction, right?
Yeah.
And so because like you're hungry, like you want to chase that ceiling that doesn't exist, right?
Right.
It's like how far can we push it?
Right.
But to me, the shift and when I started really enjoying it and even getting better at it was when I realized it was relationships and we can have fun along the way.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And it feels good to help people.
Yes.
It feels good to help people, but it also feels good to find like-minded people that are hustling with you. Like that's how me and you kind of met, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is cool. Let's do this together.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go dominate. Let's go be number one in the market together. Yeah. Let's do it. And you get excited about it and it's fun. And the nice thing about our industry is those that have that mindset and are not afraid, there's no ceiling.
Yeah.
If you're really good at it. And you just take all your passion and energy and everything you got into it. So I did that right off the bat out of hunger and need and desperation.
Necessity at that point.
But then I realized I was good at it.
Yeah.
And the company I was with at that time also realized I was good at it. And I had like a moonshot back up the chain.
Okay.
Which looking back was fine at the time, but when somebody we're working for a big company like that, a big bank, and they come and say, hey, we would like to make you manager over Alabama. Hey, we would like to make you manager over a group. Hey, we would like you kind of are like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And you keep thinking you're going to climb this ladder and it's going to be amazing the further up you go. And so I got to a point where like, we want you to, and here comes around Texas again. You did a great job with the state of Alabama and the panhandle of Florida. Profitable. You built this team up. It's awesome. We want you to go do the same thing for us in the state of Texas. Okay. All right. And I'm thinking.
So they hit you with it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the same time, I've been getting, in our world, if you're good at what you do, you get recruited all the time. Yeah. So I've been getting recruited by a guy at Gill Mortgage Company at the same time. And I told him, I loved him. And I said, I'm going to go and just give this Texas thing a shot.
So you did actually move.
I did like I dipped my toe in it. I told my family is like, we're not going to root up the family just yet because I have my issues, with the bank, the way the bank operates in the mortgage business. Okay. Nothing against people out there that are listening that work at the bank, but it's just different.
Just not for you.
Not for me. Yeah. And so, so I was having issues, but I thought to myself, okay, this is a pretty big promotion. I'm basically up there with the big dogs, the decision makers. Maybe I can influence, plus the challenge of like, I don't know anything about the state of Texas, and they're putting me over there and like, I'm going to just go build the mortgage group in that state. So massive, fun challenge.
Yeah.
And, so I dipped my toe in. So I would do the whole back and forth thing. because I wasn't ready to root up my family. By the way, the cost of living in Austin, Texas is not the same as the cost
it's
of living.
crazy.
Right?
I love that place.
It's a
Actually,
great
I love
place.
Texas in general, but it's expensive out there.
Exactly.
And I think we're just spoiled here in Alabama.
I think so
anyway.
too.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're like number 4 or 5 on the cheapest place to live in America.
Yes. So what you can live and do in Alabama, but you make the same salary in Texas, is a completely different lifestyle. So that was one of the things. But ultimately, I got to a position where I realized, like, this is not how the mortgage business can work optimally.
So you saw opportunity where you saw
I didn't like it.
You didn't like just the way the banking structure and the way they handled everything? I
didn't like it. Too much red tape, too many. No offense to anybody. Again, too many bankers involved in the mortgage business.
Okay.
Bankers don't understand the mortgage business.
Gotcha.
So
you almost had two things fighting against each other, like oil and water almost. Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much. And so the gentleman who I work for now called me back. I actually reached out to him and said, "Hey, you remember us talking about 18 months ago? I was like, I'm ready to make a change."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, all right." So, I did have a lot of different options, but this was about 8 years ago, and the company I'm working for now, Guild Mortgage, was the best move of my life.
Okay.
Greatest mortgage company. Love everything about it, the culture, everything about it, and it was perfect. And guess what? Came back, said, "You know what? I like producing." One thing I will say this to anybody in sales, in any industry, never remove yourself too far from the client if you're in sales. Right. Once you get 2-3 levels away from the client and you become some sort of like middle manager type person, number one, you kind of lose touch of what's needed on a daily basis for your sales team. But number two, hey, you're expendable when things mortgage business is up and down and up and down. And the further you are away from the client, and I guess I learned this back, going through the cycles, the further you're away from the client, the less control you have on your future. But if you are close to the client, and this is in any sales source, if you are close to the client, you have your book of business. It didn't matter what happens to that company, right? Yeah. I am my own salesperson.
I never thought of it that way, but you're 100% right.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. As long as you're close to
doesn't matter.
The hand that's feeding you, so to speak, you don't have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah. Right. So anybody that's in sales needs to understand that principle. Like, never get too far away from the client.
Huh. Gotcha.
Right. And then treat your clients way better than you want to be treated. Keep in touch with them, have systems and processes in place where that's your little nest egg, right? That's where it is. You got to love on those clients and keep up with them.
That's one of the biggest things that in my business and just personal life in general was you always hear like the giver's gain, right?
Yeah.
You always hear of that, but when you really buy into that and embrace it, like, it's amazing what can happen. Like, you thought your ceiling was here, but then it just becomes like right there. Because, it's nuts.
So if you're in sales, you have to stay with the client. And the second thing is know who your clients are. Yeah. Like, a lot of people in my industry get it wrong. What I do. You know why? Because they don't see realtors as the client.
Yeah.
I see realtors as my client. Now, my clients that I put in homes are my clients. So are my realtors. And so you have to be able to add value to both.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah. And be thinking about, like, what can I do today to not only help my people in the pipeline that need a house, but also help the people that are working alongside those people. Yeah. So you always need to be thinking about that. And, so here we are, man.
Yeah.
Here we are.
When did you start? Because I know you've got some pretty big titles, as far as I mean, you've had some great accomplishments. Like, when did that start? Because when did the move to Guild Mortgage happen?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So that's in 20. We're almost 24. So what would that be?
So
15, 16?
15, 16, yeah.
15, 16. When did you start, like, building we'll call it the brand, Jimmy Knows Mortgage?
Yeah.
In Guild. When did
that was at Guild. So that's one of the things I've seen. It's like a little bit different at an independent mortgage company in the bank. At an independent mortgage company, they give you the creativity to build your own brand.
Yeah.
to have local processing and local underwriting and build your team out and, kind of, be more of an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
which is what I am. I'm a very creative person. I'm always forward thinking. I always like, what can I do in this market that nobody else is doing?
Yeah.
And, with an independent mortgage company, they kind of give you the freedom to do that.
Do you, real quick on that, do you feel like, because I feel like I'm always like, how can I do it bigger and better? What can I do different? How can I separate myself? Do you feel like you get caught in that trap of reinventing the wheel? Have you done that? Like for me, like I try, like sometimes I feel like I get that shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Like where it's like,
can
oh,
happen.
I'm going to go do this one thing. But then I realize it's like, all I have to do is just be more efficient. That's what got me here.
Yeah.
Right. So did you ever
Yeah.
fall into those
Yeah.
traps? Yeah.
And I've learned and that's what I call juice.
Okay.
All right, I got to explain
All
this to you.
All right.
So in any sales, most people want to get to a certain level just using the juice or the shiny object or the what's going to make me separate out. Can't do that, right? Yeah. And that's where a lot of people get caught in chasing this new thing, this thing that's going to. So juice is important, but you cannot have the juice without the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Like if you're in sports.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you played sports. So like in football, first thing you got to do is block and tackle. You can't be afraid to get hit. Like if you can't block and tackle, you don't get to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's fundamentals.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Then if you can show your coaching staff that you can block and tackle, you're not afraid to get hit, then you get to play. And then if you get to play, then we'll figure out what position and we'll teach you little nuances of that position that'll make you make plays.
Yeah.
All right. So think about it in sales. You cannot play in sales. You will never be good in sales if you cannot master the fundamentals. Now, in sports, block and tackle.
What would you call the fundamentals?
Fundamentals of sales. Phone calls. Pick up the phone and call people. Whether it's cold calling, warm calling clients, calling people who can send you business. Get on the phone and call them. Have meetings with people, right? To pitch whatever it is you're going to pitch. Get face to face. Have good sales consultations with clients. Call past clients, but phone calls, text, prospecting. Yeah. Basic prospecting will never go away in sales. Yeah. And people don't like that because it's boring.
It's not flashy.
It's not flashy. And so they're like, it's kind of like that, Nick Saban says, right? Everybody wants the championship. Everybody wants to see their name in lights, but nobody wants to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Kobe, all the greats say that.
You study any successful person at anything, and they just mastered and did more of the mundane stuff, the fundamentals than anyone else. And like I even with the agents, with my company, like I tell them like the only differentiator between the producers and non-producers are the top producers have more conversations per day than anyone else.
Right.
That's all it is.
Hey.
And we want to overcomplicate it and try to do all these shiny objects and the juice, right? That's all because it's fun.
We want the juice.
But you're right. You got to have the fundamentals.
So you got to have the fundamentals. That's number one priority. And trying to add juice without fundamentals is only going to frustrate you in sales. Yeah. But adding a little juice on top of the fundamentals is the differentiating factor that makes people even greater than, the normal average person. So, for instance, let's say you're mastering the fundamentals, non-negotiable in sales every day. You got to be prospecting at least an hour a day. Yeah. Every day.
Agreed.
And if you can't do that, then you probably don't get to play. You're going to have a mediocre career in sales. Yeah. At minimum, 1 hour a day, just phone call prospecting. Whether you're a realtor, mortgage loan officer, selling Cutco knives, I don't care.
Toilet paper doesn't matter. Yeah.
You have to prospect. And a lot of people are just like, I just can't do that. Fine, you don't get to play. Go find another job.
Yeah. That's it.
Then, though, you have to think to yourself, what's going to make me a little bit differentiating? What's going to make me a little bit different, a little bit better that somebody else isn't doing? And a lot of people can, so it's almost like a supplement to your workout.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for some people, it's, I'm going to create the best buyer consult consulting meeting of all time.
Yeah.
Right? Some of it's the way they do that. Some of it's, I'm going to be an industry. I'm going to be known as an industry educator, and I'm going to do, teach the best CE classes of all time.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'm going to be a whiz at social media, but whatever that juice is, if you want to be great, then like pick one or two things, and then just be. Can I cuss? Like be a badass at it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like.
Yeah, and that's kind of me. I've made some mistakes along the way by too much juice.
Too much juice.
Because
right.
I've always been. I mean, I built my entire book of business off of cold calling.
Right.
Like that's how our first conversation. Yeah.
Right.
That's all I did was cold call. But then I started doing all these different things, and it took away from my fundamentals.
Right.
And also, I feel like the metaphor of if you're on an island, right, and there's islands surrounding you, and if you want to make progress, you start building one bridge and stay on that one bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start with 10 bridges.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Right.
Like I was flipping houses, rental properties, Airbnbs, all these different things.
You can't be good at
it. And no, you're mediocre at all of it. Because I'm a big believer that like you wake up with 100% of energy, right?
Right.
And you only get to divvy up that 100% energy. You don't get any more, you don't get any less. And so if you're putting 10% of your energy into each one of these buckets, you're only going to get 10% out.
Right.
And people are shocked. It's like, well, I'm doing all these things. I'm not profitable. I'm like, of course you're not.
Right.
So
imagine the salesperson out there that's like, I'm going to put everything I got in a social media platform. I'm going to do this and this and this. Yeah. And it takes up so much of their time and energy. They totally even don't prospect.
Yeah.
Because that's boring, right?
Oh, it does. Yeah.
And so then they like done all the social media and all that, and their stuff looks maybe a little bit better than your average Joe. Yeah. And they're like, golly, why am our sales failing? Well, because you've totally neglected fundamentals. It's like this. That's like the football player. Why am I not getting any playing time? Well, you can't block and tackle. You've forgotten the fundamentals.
Yeah, he looks good while he's failing, but
right. That's why you're getting knocked on your butt every game. So it's like, if I could say any salesperson, like if you're going to focus on something because your sales are failing, focus on mastering the fundamentals. Master that before you go off and try to master social media. Or, I'm not going to. I got a little juice that I keep secret. You're a recipient of some of it.
Sure.
But it's like nobody I know does what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about locally. I'm talking about nationally.
Yeah.
Like the juice that you add, the fundamentals are the fundamentals. You got to master that. But the juice that I add to my fundamentals, when you add that, why not? And it has to be maybe one or two things. All you can do. Why not be like the best in the world at it, or the most consistent in the world at it?
Yeah. Consistency and the best.
That's where you go from good to great.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, if you're out there and you're in sales and you're like, okay, what should I do? Master the fundamentals first. Understand what that means, because a lot of people don't even realize what it takes.
I was just about to say that a lot of people confuse the fundamentals with the juice, right?
Yeah.
Because so many realtors that come in and I talk with and they're like, well, I've done the social media posts. I'm like, no. This is conversations is what builds your business.
Right.
Social media posts, unless that's creating a conversation, that's not going to do anything.
No. That's exactly right. So like first, I like a lot of salespeople don't even understand what it takes to be good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, and I would just give you an example. In the early life of the banking world, they were like, okay, we're going to do this thing where you call 10 people a week. And like, look, bank loan officers are struggling to do that.
Yeah. I know a lot of people.
That's not going to get you anywhere calling 10 people a week. What?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, especially in my industry, I've seen a lot of, because I have recruited and coached. I'm a coach for loan officers too.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of them. Like, first is setting the expectations of like, you need to really understand what it takes if you want to be good.
Yes.
Like if you want to have a good lifestyle in this business and you want to grow and build a career, first of all, understanding exactly what it takes just to play.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this industry have no clue. I saw a video the other day. This guy, have you ever heard of Todd Duncan? He's a legend in the mortgage business. A great
The
coach.
name sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's
Anyway.
had a video out there. He's like, we polled 12,000 mortgage loan officers, which is a great sample size. So you can get 12,000 people sample size can kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the industry. I think it was something like 94 to 96% of those 12,000 people did not call their realtor partners at least once a week.
I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah. But I think the numbers show too, right? There's a reason, the 80-20 rule.
Right.
You have 20% of the population that always gets 80% of whatever. It does all the work, it makes all the money, what have you.
Right.
And it's because it's the simple stuff. They figured it out. They figured out the fundamentals. It's the
Right.
So
that's probably what separates the top 20% is they master the fundamentals, and then once they've got that system and process down, it's become a habit. They understand exactly how much you have to work and do on the prospecting side to generate business for yourself.
Yeah.
Then they've got one or two things that they've kind of icing on the cake for that.
Gotcha. So that's definitely probably what got you to Guild. But what awards and stuff have you won from Guild? Because I want to circle back around. Yeah, we got on a sales tangent, which is great. I love talking. But it's about you, man. I want to make it about you.
Well, I'll tell you so I'm an accredited mortgage professional, which means you go through some certification training. So I did that back in the early 2000s, and so I put this in the thing you asked. Yeah. I'm a Willis Bryant Award Winner, which is only one person in the nation a year gets to win that.
What year was that?
Gosh, I can't remember. A long time ago.
That's awesome, though, man.
So basically, you go through the National Mortgage Bankers Association. You go through
and that's for all lenders. This isn't a Guild thing.
No, this is like the national. Yeah. You can go through this certification process where you get accredited, and if you go, there are a lot of people that just want to, get a great understanding of the mortgage business. So you go through the National MBA's education. Yeah. I guess whatever their group is that does that, the MBA. But one person a year wins it. But you got to go through 3 different levels of education. You got to spend time in Washington, D.C. and create your own mortgage company. You got to do a lot of things to even just get to the point of getting AMP. And then it was really cool to get that award. So I was kind of proud of that in my early career. But at Guild, we have, we do a really good job of recognizing top performers. Yeah. So since 2018, I've been in either the president's or the chairman's circle.
Okay. So, and president's, what's the difference between the two? Is it based off volume that you do?
Volume.
Okay. Which one's better?
Yeah. The chairman's club is, it's like a minimum of $50 million in purchase. It's like in 2000.
It's a lot of loans considering in Alabama, the average, it's 244,000 last month was the average sales price.
So in 2000 and
slinging loans.
20, I did 99 million in personal production, and in 2021, I did 88 million in personal production. So usually, so chairman's club both of those times, but heck, that was a good year.
That's a good year.
Those were good years.
Yeah. It's not like you're selling $1 million home. Like the loans you're writing are $1 million, $2 million home
250, 270 is your average loan.
That's it.
It's a lot of production.
Yeah. How do you manage that production?
So I obviously have a team, right? There's no way I could do this by
myself. How many people are on your team?
So I have a what I call a loan partner 1, and I have a loan partner 2. So my loan partner 1 helps me from lead to the contract. So, it starts out with a client coming in. Hey, I'd like to purchase a house. I'll work on them, have the consultation, get them approved, and all that. And then they're looking for a house, right? So I have a person that helps me with that stage all the way up till that person goes under contract. And when we go under contract, that takes it to another stage where we got a deal and a timeline, right?
Yeah.
And so I have an LP2 that helps the client and me, just keeping things flowing from contract to close. We also have a processor, and I also have a business development person that helps me think through my marketing and management. Okay. And then so that's a 1, 2, 3. That's a 5-person team,
I
right?
think that's really, really smart, taking it from the introduction to contract and then a separate person from contract to close.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's ingenious because, like, it's like, for me, just dealing with clients and getting them from start to finish, it's almost I have to wear two different hats.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it's dealing with the contract negotiations very, very different than what do you want to buy or sell on a home, right? Like, it's very,
Right.
very two different conversations and two different ways you approach it. So
Right.
kudos to you, man. That's
Yeah.
smart. I didn't realize that.
And that's it's a concept that a lot of top performers have.
Yeah.
You basically what you do is you could sit there with a blank sheet. If anybody's thinking about adding a team, basically you'd sit down with a blank sheet of paper,
Yeah.
right, and write down every single thing that needs to happen from
Yeah.
initial contact or even before initial contact.
Yeah.
All the way to after close and beyond. Every little thing you can think of that needs to happen. So it's almost like you've created this assembly line.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you can put like all the sales touches and nice fancy touches that also need to happen on that. And then what you do is you're like, I can't do all this by myself. So I'm going to hire somebody to do this portion and this portion and that portion, and I'm going to do this portion. And all of a sudden you've been able to scale.
Yeah.
And two people can do the production of three people can do the production of 5. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. And plus, I feel like you would get better at your job too,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever part of the system you're in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that start to contract. What I said earlier was that how you can find that welcoming personality for the introduction, right? And then when it comes to contract, it's that person, that rock you need, right? To make sure that it's going to be okay. This is just what needs to happen next. So.
Yeah. And a great analogy is think about your doctor's office.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always call the doctor,
No.
right? You don't walk in and make your appointment with the doctor.
No.
You don't like, oh gosh, I need to get this and that and the other. I'm gonna call the doctor. Like, he's got a team of people. Like, you get somebody that checks you in and make sure you're on time and you're on your appointment. Then you get somebody that, like, hey, what's going on? Takes the order. Doctor comes in, he's got all the expertise and all that. So it's most high volume type organizations need a team of people assigned to one person.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about having a team, though, it's like, like for you, for instance, you want to partner up with me. Like, you send a client, you refer a client to me, like, you and that client will have at least 4 people on that file at all times.
Yeah.
Where I do feel sorry for that single salesperson that's by themselves trying to handle all the calls, make sure all the administrative things are done. That person can only help so many people at one time.
I've been that guy too.
Yeah,
because
it's not fun.
I experienced some real burnout, like year 3 or 4 of when I got into real estate. Like, I was crushing it, working. I added it up. I think it was like 530 something days I worked straight. Now, not 10-hour days every day, but minimum of 3 or 4 every single day.
Yeah.
And it's because I was doing the work of 2 or 3, 4 people.
Right.
But it was just me. And so you have to work into the night. You have to get up early.
And it also creates an inconsistency in your income.
Yeah.
Because what you do is, I had a prospect. So you prospect, if you're by yourself, you prospect, you get some business in the door, and now all of a sudden you have this big pipeline. Well, I got to manage the pipeline if I'm going to close it. So then you got to stop prospecting, and you got to do all your operational administrative things, make sure that's happening. And then when you get all that done, you're like, oh no, I don't have any funnel leads coming in because I haven't prospected.
I talk with a lot of agents about that. I call it like the wave of real estate, the wave of a realtor. Like, you start here and the only thing you need is a client. So you work, you get a client. It's like, I got to find these clients' houses. So you get them houses, you get them under contract. Then you're up here at the closing table. And then all of a sudden you just fall off because you haven't been prospecting the whole time. Right. And to me, like, before I started getting some help and things like that, it was all about, like, time blocking. Like, that helped me a lot, but it quickly moved into it.
Yeah, if you want to go from just I think that's one of the things that can help people go from, like, average or below average up to, like, a top tier is just help.
Yeah.
A good person on your team that does all the things to allow the salesperson that's good at sales
Yes.
to spend the majority of their time selling.
Yeah.
We don't get paid to, do administrative tasks because we're commissioned people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We don't get paid to do all the administrative things. We get paid to bring in
That's
clients and help
Yes.
clients.
Yes.
So we want the majority of our time spent doing that.
Yeah. My first real estate coach that I had, I think 6 years ago, that's what he really taught me, the importance of like the dollar per hour task.
Yeah,
Right. Like
right.
only thing you want to be doing is the highest dollar per hour job. The rest of it, delegate.
Yep.
Like either that or delete it entirely. So
Yeah, that whole little thing I was talking about is like all the tasks that take. Then the next step would be assign color code them. Green are the tasks that actually will generate money for you. Red are the tasks that don't.
Yep.
If you are the individual that is really good at sales and relationship building and talking to clients, then assign your name to the green and hire out for the red.
Yep. I think that's great advice.
Yeah. So,
how is it now when you started scaling your business and making moves and being the top 1%, in the nation and all that stuff? I imagine that bringing in the people was a different type of skill set managing the people. So how did you manage that?
Yeah,
Because it's not just you anymore.
It's not.
You've got a team, and not only that, you
couple things you got to look for.
Okay.
All right, and I have the best team ever.
Yeah.
I could not design better people on my team, so they make me good. The first thing, a couple things you got to look for, though, you got to have somebody with the same intensity of mindset that you have. Like if you are like I was talking about earlier, I want as much. I mean, I have an appetite I can't fill for production.
Yeah.
So like I'm working, like I am working constantly. I'm always like, I love it, passionate about it. I have high expectations on client service. Like if you're going to be on my team, you're going to have that same mindset of like, we're going to win. We're number one, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like, and they get mad if they see anybody ahead of us on the list.
Yeah.
Right? They have to have that same mindset of like, we want to win. And also they have to have the same mindset of excellence. If you're a person that believes in excellence in details, and when clients come to me, I want them to feel like it's the best experience they've ever had in their life.
Yeah.
Right. And if your teammates don't have that same philosophy of mindset and excellence, then it's only going to be frustrating for you. And then the third thing is, like in our business, you're probably going to be working on a Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or, somebody's going to be calling, they're flipping out, whatever, all this happened, oh my gosh, and it's 8 o'clock at night, and you're going to need to be able to say, yeah, I want that life.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can't, I've mentioned Nick Saban twice now, but like he says, like A players want to play with A players.
That's it.
If you put a D player on an A player's team, D's just going to get mad because A player,
they won't
play together.
Don't want to.
They don't want to play together. So if you're thinking about scaling, I think you'd be very slow to add a team member and make sure that they have all the qualities that you want. And so it's critical that you get the right people. And thankfully, my first hire, Christy.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
But we interviewed I interviewed like 20 something people, and I had like all the same questions for each person, and I was like grading out their questions and all that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much important. It wasn't as important to me that they knew the mortgage industry. What was important to me was all those intangibles, and she had it, man.
That's what I look for. Like even like you can tell like who's going to really make it, just in my field being a real estate agent, you can tell who's going to make it because they have the qualities. Skills can be taught.
Right.
You can't change someone's character, their
Right.
work ethic, their passion, their strive for excellence,
Yeah.
the tenacity,
Right.
the want to take those calls
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock. That's what I was going to say too. Is everyone thinks that we get to choose our own hours, right? Don't you get to choose
Oh
your?
yeah.
Yeah. I think the best way I've been able to answer that is like I work when no one else works because
Pretty much.
that's it.
Well, anyway, I'm always working.
That's
the
it.
reality is you're always working. You're always, even if it's on, you're just going to a social event on a Saturday night. There are people around you. They want to talk about, hey, what are interest rates doing? No, so
What-
you're always, you kind of always, if you're good and if you're known and you're branding, you kind of always
Yeah.
are always working.
So I want to talk about since you just mentioned that we're always working, which I agree with. How do you manage the work-life balance?
Yeah.
Because I have my own take on that, but I'm dying to hear yours.
Well, a lot of people have tried to coach me on, you got a time block and you got to do this. And I just, it works for some people, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
So when my wife calls me or texts me, I answer it no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
I try to wrap up my day at the office, so I can be home for dinner. And during dinner time, we still have dinner as a family,
Yeah.
right? So we sit around, and the phone is off during dinner. Like, look, there's no real estate emergency that's going to happen that you have to, tell your wife and kids, I can't talk to you right now. I got to handle this. Like, there's not that big of
100%
an
agree.
emergency that should make you do that.
Yeah.
So if we're doing that in our industry, we need to stop.
Yep.
Right. So there are times where I'm putting that phone down and my family gets all my attention. Right. So there are times where you're just going to have to wait. And usually it's the time between like 5 to 7 at night.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's dedicated family time every night. But, on the weekends, I'm doing stuff with my family or taking my kid to where he wants to go and all that. And I let realtors know and clients know, if you want to reach me, you can on a Saturday or a Sunday and call and I'll see you call. But if I'm in the middle of playing football with my kid, I might just say, hey, I'll call you back in about 10 minutes,
Yeah.
But, so one of the things you should never do is like your kid's talking to you and you see a phone call come in and you do this to them. To your kid, so you can, answer a
figure
call
out.
about is the appraisal ordered or not, right? Never do that. So I learned that, I think it's important to do that. But as far as like time blocking, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible. There are a lot of people that can pull it off.
Let me ask it a different way with work-life balance. How do you stop yourself? Because you're an achiever. You're a go, right?
Right.
And you want to, the sky's the limit. Well, now we're in space. Let's figure out how far we can go, right? That's the type of person you are. How do you balance the other things in life from the achieving, like the desire to achieve versus, the home life?
Because my wife is like, you better achieve.
Turns
She's
out
like, what is this? What are you doing here? So like,
turns out a team fixes a lot of things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the team does help me,
Yeah.
but like, again, work-life balance, like my wife is in my camp. She's like, we want to succeed, right? Too. Like she's there. So I remember one time, it was a while back. It was about 7 years ago. And God, the pipeline was down. I had a couple of down months. And I remember it was like a Saturday or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this might be a tough month because we don't have anything in the pipeline. And she looked at me, she's like, well, what are you doing here then? Like, what? I mean, like, what do you think you need to do? I said, well, maybe I should just go out and just start, meeting some realtors at open houses and just kind of introducing myself. She goes, well, if that's what it takes for you to, make your numbers or whatever, or, pay the house payment or whatever, then you need to go do that. So I think it's important that your family also understands that if you're in sales, especially if you're commissioned,
Yeah.
that you're not in an 8 to 5 job or 9 to 5 job, right? So there are times where you have to take a Sunday and go out and hustle. Or in your case, I got to show homes on Saturday night.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So your family has to be bought into that. But also there are times where like you can say to your family, and you need to do this, things are pretty good. My team's got it. The next 2 days, we're going to go off to, we're going to drive up to Nashville and have a good fun time.
Yeah.
And during that time, would redirect my calls to my team. It is good to have a team.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you just gotta, you gotta make sure you have some checks and balances in there, or else you may be all this huge, massive production and just fail at home, and you can't do that.
Yeah, because mine, I make the mistake a lot of like it's all or nothing. It has to be, and like that check and balance, and my fiance helps me keep check, like as far as, making sure that I'm taking care of myself and stuff too,
Right.
Because I'll run ragged. I'll work 14 hours a day.
Right.
I love what I do,
Right.
and it doesn't feel like work, but at the same time, it's like when you got bags under your eyes
Right.
and you're running off 3 hours of sleep for the past week,
That's not good.
No, it's not good.
But a lot of people are like, oh, you can't do it all. Like you can't be a high achiever and have work-life balance and have, good well-being.
I refuse to believe
That's
that.
that's a
I
lie.
refuse.
You
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
You can. I'm a evidence. Good work-life balance. Now, I could do better, from a health standpoint, right? I gotta be working out. I got to get that going again. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
you can do it. You can carve out your day. You can do it, and you can have an amazing, successful career in sales. You can have a wonderful work-life balance. You can have a good, healthy, body and mindset, and eat right and all that. We're totally capable of doing that as humans.
I think it's just intention.
It is.
And it's your priorities.
Right.
Like it's like if your number one priority from the time you wake up, time you go to bed is to close a deal, that's all you're going to be focused on.
Yeah.
If your priority is to have a great life and close a deal, you're probably going to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I think if people are like neglecting their family life, they probably would neglect it whether they got a lot of production or not.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. So moving forward with Guild, like do you have any big plans, or I know you got goals. We always talk about being an achiever, but where are you going with it?
That's a great question.
Because you're number one market share in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that you
Yes.
check that box.
Yes.
And you have been for how many years?
I guess in the last 3 years.
Yeah, last 3
4
years. So,
So
got to
it's good.
stay consistent with that. But I know you got some things in your pocket. Like, where do you want to go?
So, I would like to grow the local team, maybe 1 or 2 more people.
Yeah.
But it's important to me to never upset. We have an amazing culture.
Yeah.
So it has to be the right person. From a personal standpoint, what I've enjoyed, I just started coaching in 2023, and I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So, like, I've seen how helpful it is to give back to people in my industry.
Does it feel selfish to you almost? Like when you're giving? Because I almost and I know that's a weird question.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
Yeah, it is a weird question. What I mean by that is like I almost get more out of watching someone knowing I played a small part in that than they do. And they don't even realize it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's totally fulfilling to know that you've helped somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess but it's not selfish because like I don't care if you work at Guild or not.
Yeah.
Like I would love to be able to share my secrets with a loan officer and help them achieve their goals. Or a realtor.
Yeah.
Right? If we're not that far removed from what we need to do to be successful. So I do like that. Now, I want to outproduce. Obviously, 2023 was a hard year. It's like one of the worst years in our industry in the last 30 years. From a loan officer standpoint, it's a lot harder than a realtor standpoint. So this was because 2008, we had the backstop of the government giving us low rates and HARP and all this, and we could refi and do all that. 2023, the government wanted to shut down the lending business, right?
Yeah.
They raised rates to 8%. The rates got raised to 8%.
Yeah.
So like after 2 years of people seeing 2 and 3% rates, they literally almost shut down the business. So it was very difficult for a mortgage salesperson to be successful. Very difficult.
I think a lot of people don't realize too is that from a just closed volume standpoint, we're the same numbers as 08, 09, 2010, like in our market.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. Yeah.
It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there, but like a lot of people have not survived 2023.
No. I think one of the best statements I've heard in a long time that I like fully agree with, like just a general view of what's going on, is the silent depression. Like no one's talking about it,
Right.
but it's there.
Yeah.
So
And so I'm looking forward to. I think we're on about the end of that.
Yeah.
We're at about at the tail end of all this craziness and this inflation, and your rates are going to come back down. But I think there's a big pent up demand for housing. So I'm excited about like kicking ass again.
Yes, me too.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think my team kicked ass in 2023, like because it was so hard and we actually did great.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do good when you can get a loan, walk into your mailbox. Hey, Mr. Neighbor, I heard rates are 3%. Yeah, you may help you out. Yeah, I mean that's how easy it was. Like people could just literally call 10 people and get 5 deals in 2020 and 2023.
Yeah.
I mean 2020 and 2021. 2022 started the correction. 2023, a lot of people left the business because, again, what were we talking about? They didn't even know the fundamentals. They lost the fundamentals, never were taught the fundamentals, and weren't doing the fundamentals. And then when you need to rely on relationships and the pie is smaller, I don't know how to get business. And they're like, this business is not for me.
Well, most loan officers,
which is great for me.
Yeah, but most loan officers and realtors, or especially realtors, they thought it was normal to put a sign in the yard and people line up to buy it. When I got in the business, the average days on market were like 120, 130.
Right,
I'm
which
like,
is
this
normal.
is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Right. Housing supply, normal housing supply is like 6 months of housing supply.
Yes,
Like we have 2 right now.
Yeah.
So there's just, but I think. I think what was cool about 2023, I see it as a blessing, is me and my team realized again what we're made of.
Yeah.
Like when this business is cyclical, and you realize what you're made of in those downswings. Am I really good at what I do? Like do people really want to do business with me because they like me or they trust me or because they think I've got a good system or product or personality or whatever. In those downturns when business is really hard to get and you're still, achieve, a high level of production, that's where you can take to the bank. Yeah, I survived that.
Yeah. It's
kind of like, Rocky, right? You knocked me down and I'm still here in the 12th round and I'm about to kick your ass. Yeah. So that's how I feel like 2024 is.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, economy, 8% rates, slowdown in housing, all this stuff, lack of inventory. That was a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
But now I'm ready to give it back to you. Because that's where I feel 2024 is like.
I think there's a lot of opportunity coming up. I really do. And I'm excited for it.
I am too. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what's going to happen in 2024, helping as many clients as we can, helping as many realtors grow as we can, coaching as many loan officers. So, I don't ever really, I kind of have a number in my mind, but I don't really like attach my goals to like a specific number. It's more of like, these are the activities that I'm going to make sure that I do. So my measurement of success are you doing these activities on a daily basis 100% of the time? And then I have, you I have my juice. When I have one little piece of juice, I think I'm going to add in 2024. I'm excited about, but you'll hear about that.
Yeah, this is part of my juice.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah.
This is fun. So it's fun, man. I think we're through the worst of it, and that it should excite a lot of people that work in our industry.
I know. And 2023 is a rough year. I think that a lot of people don't realize how much opportunity there was in 2023.
Yes.
Because it's not the people, like, a common thing I heard with realtors is like, it's finally all these new ones are getting out. We have less competition. For one, I don't really believe in competition. I don't. I think you kind of control your own destiny, and you decide what you talked about the process, right? And doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But with that, I think that it becomes easier to be excellent. Like you talked about that drive to be excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Like all you have to do is the fundamentals, and you become leaps and bounds better than anyone else.
Yeah. What did we just say earlier? 94% of people don't call their partners on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with it? Like, what has happened to our work ethic almost? And I don't think it's just in our industry. I think it's all salespeople.
It's just
we got lazy in 2020 and 2021.
Things were too good for too long.
Yes.
Yeah, like way too good, like way too easy.
Right.
And so, like, my prediction for like my industry is like, and I think even yours is skills and value add. That's what's going to dominate.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the skills more than anything, and it's like the fundamentals and understanding the business and just the work. Like, just do the work.
Those people who in 2023 continued to build relationships and continued to work and craft and hone and get better, 2024 is going to be amazing for them. Those people that sat on their hands because they were scared and questioning their abilities and decided, I don't know if this business is for me, they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't switch it on. And the industry, only time in our industry where you can switch it on is when you go through those boom cycles that last maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to be, it's just an easier environment. But so those people that down in the downturn, got better at their skill set and job and continued to see it as an opportunity to build market share, they're going to have a great year.
Yes. Yeah. It's the relationships.
Yeah.
That's what we're in. A lot of people think sales is convincing somebody. It's not. It's just relationships.
That's
all it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop, man, because I feel like we could go on forever. I do have some questions I want to ask you because I think the people want to know. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book. Golly. Okay, so fiction. Okay. I love. I would say, have you ever Shogun?
Not familiar.
All right. Yeah. So amazing story, amazing book. I love that. Nonfiction, there's a couple out there. Think and Grow Rich is a fantastic book to get you motivated and thinking you can accomplish goals and all that. Yeah, I read the Bible on a daily basis, so I guess those three.
Okay. All right, we'll roll with that, man. If you could have dinner with anyone, past, present, or future, who would it be?
Oh, gosh.
I don't even know how I would answer that.
I know. I would love to sit down. And I'm a homer. I'd love to sit down and have dinner with Nick Saban.
Okay.
I'd love to hear.
That's the third or fourth time you've mentioned his name.
Dude, he is a genius at processes and motivation and excellence and all that. And, of course, he's a coach of my favorite football team.
So. Roll Tide. Yeah. What's your favorite food?
Whew. All right. So I'm a sucker for a good steak, a good cheeseburger. But like my evil habit are Dots pretzels.
You're kidding me.
Totally addicted to them.
Okay. All right. I would not expect that.
Totally addicted to them.
I would not expect that. Last one before we go. So this entire, the whole point of the podcast is to figure out, how you did what you did.
Right.
And so we kind of figured that out. But what is your why? And is it the same today as it was when you first started?
Yeah. No, that's I think it changes. Yeah. Again, when we talked earlier, my why in the beginning was had to pay the bills,
Yeah.
survive. Then it evolved into I want to win. I want to see my name at the top of the list to see what I'm made of.
Yeah.
And now, in this stage of accomplishing those things, just so you know, on a side note, getting to be number one, is not as fulfilling as you think, by the way, right? Getting to a certain level of production, it's not, you're looking up at there and you're like, oh, if I could ever achieve that, and you achieve it, and you're like, ah. So I've kind of realized that, and now it's more of like, I want to set up almost like it's like I'm a give back legacy type situation. So my why is like, I want to still continue to achieve and all that, but I'm really wanting to, like, I'm watching my kids grow and I want to set things up for them. So my why is about making sure that they're on the right path for life. And then, the team that works for me and the LOs that I manage and coach, I want to like pour into them and make sure that, I'm helping them to achieve the greatness. And even the realtors that I work with, I was like, I want to make sure. So it's more of like my why has evolved.
Yeah.
I need it because I got to pay the bills, to where now I want to see what I can achieve. Now I'm ready to like establish a legacy and give back to people.
Awesome. I think that wraps it up, man.
Yeah.
I think we figured out how you did it.
I think so. At least we got a good idea.
Oh, I enjoyed it, man.